Hey guys, this is Esports Money's ESM Mac 10, whatever you want to call me, and today we're going to be going over the patch notes to 6.83. I generally like to give the patch notes at least 1 to 2 weeks, about 10 days on average, before I really make a statement about the balance, because I like to play with it a little bit. I know I haven't been very active on my YouTube channel lately, and I haven't been very active in DotA lately. I've been just really busy with school, and I really want to get back into it, but it's just been keeping me busy. However, I can assure you that I think I've played around 7 or 8 games since the patch came out. I've seen a lot of trends that I should be able to talk about, and I have kept up with the pro scene a decent bit. Didn't watch too much of the Captain's Draft tournament that finished up today, but I have been keeping up with, well, basically everything else. So, in the gameplay update, ranked all pick initial planning phase reduced from 40 to 30 seconds, not a big deal. All illusions now deal 25% damage less to structures. I'll talk about that first of these two because it's least important. But that's kind of big for heroes like Tiny. That's kind of a pretty big nerf to Tiny. He's the one that really comes to mind here. Also Anti-Mage. Also Naga. I think the biggest nerf here is to Naga and Terrorblade, just because those are the heroes that are actually based around pushing. Phantom Lancer to some extent, but since the rework he hasn't been as much about pushing. First rune spawns are now both bounty runes that are twice as effective. This is a huge buff to supports. This is insane. This actually makes camping the rune at level 1 worth it for supports, or for even your mid, potentially, if your mid knows that he just can't block. Can't doesn't, he just sucks. So, the Rax bounty reduced, it's... I guess that's a cool idea. It kind of... I don't know if that's a nerf or a buff to heroes like Lycan. I think it's a slight nerf, but not that big a deal. Ward location to the right of Loshan is now pathable. Fixed a ward location of Dire Ancients that could not be easily seen. That's cool. Ancient Granite Golem, health reduced. Yeah, it's a slight buff to the Ancient Granite Golems. Lycan will steer through them. I think that's actually a buff to Lycan because it makes Ancients harder for everyone else, but he still won't have an issue with them. Private lobby games now use Captain's Mode Creep, spawn timer when an all pick, whatever. Maximum attack speed increased, that's cool. Following abilities no longer have restrictions when cast on spell immune allies. That's kind of cool, but it always should have been like that, I think. The tool tips for Vanguard now respect blah blah blah. Vision of Fog of War can now be any numerical value rather than specific intervals. That's cool. But so, let's talk about the heroes, probably the biggest things here. Some big item changes, but heroes. Borrowed time duration increased by 1 second. I think that's a good change just because Abaddon hasn't been seeing as much gameplay recently. It's pretty cool. The Alchemist buff is one of the bigger ones in the change, just because Alchemist is a hero that, at least at TI2, he was really a hard carry almost every game. And then following TI2, he got nerfed, and his ultimate got... I can't remember if it was after TI2 or TI3 that his ultimate was changed. But basically, after his ultimate was changed, he just fit even more into the support role. And I think that he's a really good carry, and I actually prefer to see him played as carry rather than support. And I think this just helps him a lot. I think the hero is actually really good and has been consistently good for a long time. And I think that you'll see him maybe play more in a core role. Axe, this Battle Hunger was reworked. I think it's actually a buff because of the damage increase, especially at level 2 and level 3, but I think level 2 is probably the biggest change, proportionally speaking. The nerf on the cast range kind of sucks, but the mana cost change makes it so you can kind of always spam it, and you can just level it up without worrying about the mana cost. Overall, I think it's an okay... Axe is a hero that's... He's been worked with a lot lately, and it seems like... I'm trying to connect this to the change they made to counter Helix, but I'm having a hard time doing it. But it feels like it fits more. The cast range is shorter, you have to be close to people to do it, but the movement speed increase is bigger, the mana cost is reduced. It feels like a buff. I think it's a buff. Nightmare cooldown now scales. This is not that big of a change. I think it's good because it lets Bane scale slightly better into the later part of the game, and it's also good because it is like a 1 second nerf on his level 1 Bane Moronic gank, which is always annoying. Beastmaster, I do not remember what all of this is, so I've got to reread it real quick, guys. Hawk health, I would say that's a slight buff. Hawk movement speed, I would say that's also a slight buff. Well, no, that's a nerf. That's a nerf. Hawk day sight increased. Hawk night sight decreased. No, actually Hawk's... Well, it makes him better at level 1, which is okay, but overall I think it is a nerf. Here's the thing, like I read this before and thought it was a decent nerf. The poison's slow, and the base damage on the boar does more damage, so he actually doesn't suck anymore, and the base attack time is now better, I think. It's a buff, because that lets him have a better landing stage at the lower levels. And the poison is the big one. The 10% poison at level 1, 30% poison level 2, 40% poison level 4. So it's a rework, but honestly, I think Beastmaster, and I've seen him a lot in professional games lately, but he hasn't felt that strong, even though he's gotten a few picks. And in pub games, he doesn't feel that strong either. I think this is overall a nerf, and I don't like it. I think he could have been buffed slightly, to be honest. What is the no reflection tag? Blood Rage, no longer if the damage has the no reflection tag. I think Bloodseeker is... I think he's fine to go in Captain's mode. I don't know if he'll be picked. I think he was stronger before he got reworked. Like, at least... Like, the way Bloodseeker is now, he's better overall, but I think before Bloodseeker got reworked, he was really good at killing specific heroes, specifically Slark, because his passive damage silence wasn't dispellable. I think he had a really niche role there, and he could have been used more in it, and people just never took the time to figure him out. And with this rework, we'll never find out. But I think overall he's a better hero, and maybe someone will find out a good thing to do with him in Captain's mode. He's still a good counter. He's still an okay answer to Slark with his new change, but before his silence, you could silence Slark after he used his jump, and in doing so, he couldn't actually, like, what's it called? He couldn't, like, dispel it. So, Bounty Hunter track bonus gold for self increased. Bounty Hunter got a pretty massive buff all around, and basically what we're seeing right now, what we've seen for the past few weeks in the metagame before this patch, is that you kind of build, like, tri-core lineups because you don't need that much support, because everyone gets lots of money, everyone gets lots of experience, and the games have been going really long, so you want a lineup with a lot of cores. One of the themes of this patch, and you can see it from the Bounty Rune change, and with this Bounty Hunter change, is that mid-game and early-game heroes, as a general trend, are trying to be made stronger so that we can move away from this tri-core meta. And it's not that the tri-core meta is bad or that IceFrog doesn't like it, I think it's just the fact that it's... any meta gets repetitive no matter how good the meta is. Eventually it gets old. Except for 6.80, I love that patch, and not just because Lycan was broken. But yeah, Bounty Hunter is now sick. I've been destroyed by so many Bounty Hunters now. It's ridiculous. Overall nerfs on Brewmaster. I don't think this is enough to take him out of the professional scene. I don't think the hero is that, like, super OP to begin with. I think he's really good on the right hands. I think you'll still see him picked, but with any patch, any big patch, you'll see a change in the meta. And I think that you'll still see him some, but he won't be as popular. Especially, not because of this change per se, but just because they're cooler options and new things to try out. The Quill Spray stack damage increase is really, really cool. I like seeing a buff to Bristleback because he's a really powerful hero, almost like too strong, I think, and I would like to see him in the pro scene more. Broodmother's been picked a lot lately in the professional scene. At Beyond the Summit, at the what was that? The Summit tournament, whatever it was. I watched that thing, and Broodmother was picked quite a bit there, but she didn't feel like she was winning games. Like, the games she did win, it felt like her team just won in spite of her, or won with her, rather than won because of her, or because she had a huge impact. And I don't think that she's overpowered. I don't think she needed any changes yet. I would still like to see her played with before people decide if she's worth nerfing. This isn't a big nerf, of course, but I think being able to use the spiderlings as, like, your own little invisible wards in your web, I think that was cool. And I think that was, like, a neat trick that Broodmother players could do. And I would like it if Broodmother were picked more. Bird Mother was actually my favorite hero in Dota 1, for those of you guys that don't know. I played the hero in 2009. I loved that hero. In like 2007, I think, that hero was just so broken, which is why IceFrog's kind of afraid to buff her now. CK got an overall buff at basically all levels. I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of CK, and I'm surprised we haven't, because CK sort of, he's a Wisp hero. He and Tiny are Wisp heroes. And basically, these are heroes, and Ursa doesn't really fall into this category in my opinion, but, because, I mean, Ursa is a Wisp hero, but he doesn't offer what Tiny and CK do. Tiny and CK offer this system where they can be scary at all points in the game. They can literally be the most terrifying thing you've ever seen at level 1 if they land their stuns, and they can also scale into some of the most terrifying late-game carries there are. So, given we're in this current meta where the games go on forever, and everyone gets items and farm, and fighting early happens a lot anyway, CK and Tiny are heroes I think that should be picked a lot more and are really strong right now. And I think you're going to start seeing a boatload of Chaos Knight when people realize this. Chen, the Test of Faith, we've all seen the videos on Reddit, and the screenshots, and the Holy Persuasion max units. I think the Holy Persuasion max units is really cool because now you have the second creep at level 2, and you also end with 4 creeps. I think this will make Chen like top tier. Like, I already thought Chen was a really, really strong hero, but I think this makes him like stupidly strong. But the Test of Faith thing, like, now if you have a Blink Dagger and 4 Centaurs, you can blink onto any hero at level 7 and use Test of Faith before you blink. All the Centaurs land around the hero, and you can chain the stuns, and between your auto attacks and the Centaur, you can kill, I think, anyone at level 7. It's really strong. Clink's base attack range from 600 to 630. I like the rat things that EE was doing with Clink's at MLG Columbus in 2013, and I've seen a lot of teams like sort of do weird things like that, and a lot of teams experiment with Clinks, but he hasn't been really popular or really strong in the meta, even though his Flaming Arrows isn't an orb effect anymore. But I think in general, like, Clinks is a hero we should see more of. I think he's always been kind of a situational pick, but hopefully this will get him picked a little bit more. Battery Assault Charge damage increased. Now, Clockwork is a hero I've always felt is very strong, but he hasn't been getting picked that much, so I think that's an okay change. He's still kind of a pub stomp hero. He's been viable. I think he's always been viable in the professional scene situationally, so I think a slight buff was better than like a massive buff for him. Now, this Crystal Maiden change, Crystal Nova attack speed slow from 20 to 30, Frostbite cooldown down from 10 to 10.987. Freezing Field duration increased from 7 to 10 seconds. Freezing Field explosion spawn radius and slow radius increased by 150, which is huge. Like, as you increase radius in a circle around a hero, the more once you have a certain amount of radius, if you add 100 to it, you're making the AoE way bigger than if it were just like 100 plus 150. So that's actually a pretty huge AoE now. And I think that Crystal Maiden was already a pretty strong hero, even though she wasn't getting picked that much. But I like seeing her buffed. She's a support that I really like. She's really old school, old-fashioned, old style of hero. I think she was good before this, and I think she's awesome now. Darkseer, base armor increased by 1. This is a Darkseer buff. This is kind of historic, because Darkseer was... Everyone makes jokes about how Darkseer is always nerfed. Darkseer's been consistently nerfed since TI2. And it's because at TI2 you saw him picture ban almost every game. And the vacuum pull duration increased from 0.4 to 0.5. I don't know if that's a buff or a nerf, but I want to say that that's a buff to Darkseer, because you have an extra 0.1 second that your allies can be positioning themselves, and etc., etc. But it's interesting to see him being buffed now. I think IceFrog's no longer afraid to nerf it, or no longer afraid to buff him, which is cool. Dazzle getting a bonus. I think Dazzle's... I think he's a good hero, but with the extra 50 damage, he has more lane presence, which is cool. I don't think he really needed any changes, but I'm not opposed to this. The DP strength growth reduced from 2.2 to 1.9 might be my favorite change of this whole patch. My girlfriend's going to hate me if she hears me saying that, because she's a DP picker. But DP is essentially a hero whose strength is that she has this stupidly awesome ultimate and the ability to constantly spam lots of AoE damage. And I think it would have been cool if they just reduced her strength growth from like 2.2 to maybe even 1.1, just completely demolishing her strength growth and giving her ultimate the old cooldown back. I think it would have been better if you kept her ultimate stupidly OP, but just made her so squishy she was like not viable. Will she still get picked? Situationally. Will people still hate it when they play against her? Yes. This does make her squishier though, so at 10 levels, you are missing 3 strength, so it does make her a little bit squishy, but it's nothing to get to change. Glimpse, mana cost rescaled, that's a buff. Glimpse cooldown reduced, that is pretty huge buff. Kinetic field cooldown reduced, that is also a nice buff. Static storm cooldown reduced. I think Disruptor is another hero that I think has always been pretty awesome, but for whatever reason he hasn't been picked. And again, we're seeing this trend of support heroes all getting minor buffs to make it so the early game and the mid game matter more, because right now we're seeing all of these games go for so long. So, I like it. DK Elder Dragon form level 3 now maintains the corrosive breath abilities from 1 and 2. I honestly didn't know that he lost that, because I knew a long time ago, I think it was maybe TI2. You'll see me reference TI2 a lot because, like, in my opinion, the biggest patch that we've had since I started playing was probably the patch following TI2. But Elder Dragon form level 3 now maintains the corrosive breath ability from 1 and 2. Originally, the level 2 didn't maintain the corrosive breath, but by level 3, people usually don't care, and they skill it anyway. Like, before you didn't get the ult at level 11 because you wanted to keep the corrosive breath, but at level 3 you get so much damage and all the cool stuff from the ultimate that you usually just get the level 2 at level 15 and the level 3 at level 16. But now you get it. Now it's even better, and you still do all the damage to towers. It's a cool buff to him, and it doesn't like manipulate his stats, which is cool. I like the change a lot, and I think DK needed a small buff. Illusions now benefit from marksmanship bonus, and they will lose the bonus if an enemy is nearby. Honestly, I didn't know that Drow Ranger's illusion didn't benefit from her ultimate. I think this is a stupidly huge buff to her, and now I think you want to rush Manta, like, pretty much every game. Like, not rush, but, like, you get your core treads and, like, a couple Wraith Bands, and I think your next choice is just straight rush Manta, if it wasn't before. I kind of want to skip Earth Spirit because I don't know the hero at all. I've played him, like, twice. I think it's a slight buff. Hard for me to tell because I don't play the hero. Earthshaker's enchant totem mana cost, that's a massive buff to him, and as a lot of you guys know, I'm a huge proponent of Crit Shaker. I like to play carry Earthshaker, like at least a 2, usually a 1 position Earthshaker. I love playing the hero as a core, and so I get all giddy looking at this. I think that's cool. I think, will he get picked in pro games as a core? Maybe, very rarely though. Astral Spirit damage reduced. Fuck this guy. I can't stand Elder Titan. I've just seen him so much lately, and he's so good against agility carries that you're sort of forced to pick into these old school strength carries, or the 6.8 through 6.80 to 6.82 strength carry meta has really like been perpetuated by the fact that Elder Titan just destroys agility carries. So I like seeing him getting nerfed. It's not that big of a nerf. I don't think he needed to be nerfed into the ground, but I like seeing him nerfed. Enchantress, base movement speed increased. That's actually huge. She can now chase really well in the early game. It'll probably get her back in the game some. We're seeing a decent amount of buffs to junglers here, which is cool because like jungling hasn't been that popular in the pro scene for a while. Faceless Void, small nerfs all around, which I think is the best way to deal with Void. Like, I love the hero, but he is really strong. I think nerfing the Chronosphere is a good move. Time Walk no longer slows attack speed. Like, I didn't know it did that. I use it for the movement speed slow when I'm escaping, but so he'll die a little bit more when you're using Time Walk to try to escape from people. And your Chronosphere's got a bigger cooldown, which just makes Aghanims an even better choice on him. The ward units no longer attack with inside the Chronosphere is kind of big because you think of the Witch Doctor Faceless Ward combo, but it's actually not that big because you can just cast Witch Doctor out like outside of the Chrono, like on the edge, and it will still work out fine. So not that big of a deal. All around buffs to Gyro, which is pretty cool. The force staff being used on homing missiles is neat, I think. Gyrocopter's a hero that I've always thought was okay. I don't think he's that strong. I don't think he's bad, though. I've played him a lot, and I've won games with him, but there's never been a point in time... Like, with a lot of carries, you get to a point in the game where you're just like, I can almost 1v5 the enemy team if you're really balling out of control. Or if you get... Sometimes it's Faceless Void. If you're like ahead by like 15 kills at like 30 minutes, and you've been farming well, you can think to yourself, if I get a Chronosphere on 3 supports, I will kill all of them. I'll kill 1.5 before the Chronosphere ends, and after I kill the second one, I can blink on the third, or time walk to the third and kill him. Gyrocopter is a hero that's never really felt like he can just man-mode everyone in the world, because he's not. He's like a lot squishier, but he does a lot more AoE. He's not really my style of hero, but I do think he's very strong, or has been very strong, and I like seeing him getting buffed just because he hasn't been around lately. The base, now moving to Huskar, the base regen from scaling to 10 at all levels is actually huge. This means that a value point in Inner Vitality is now something viable, and I think it makes Huskar way better. That's just really cool. That's really cool. However, it does make the value point worse in the early game, but even better in the late game. But this makes Huskar better. It's a huge buff to the value point and to Huskar in the super early game, and it's a huge buff to Huskar in the super late game. Or not a huge buff, but a slight buff to Huskar in the super late game. I like it. I think he needed it. IO no longer requires turning to perform any actions. I think that's a really good change for him because he's a fucking ball. And I mean, in general, he needed. I think Wisp. I just think it's a good change. I don't know if he needed it, but I like it. Liquid Fire, damage reduced. I don't like this change just because I think it's cool that Jakiro was always picked for Ice Path, and now he's always picked for Liquid Fire. So now you look at it and you're like, why the fuck do I pick Jakiro? Was it too good? Maybe. Is the hero still good? Yeah, he's okay. I think that the change might have needed to happen. Who am I to question Ice Frog? But I personally am not crazy about it just because I like the hero being like... I liked... The hero was one of the really obnoxious ones we always saw in the professional scene lately, but I think it was cool. I haven't gotten tired of him yet, so be sad to see him go. Juggernaut is a hero that I really like and have missed in the professional scene, and I think now with the Blade Dance, you actually have you don't get stats ever now. It's like you just always get the crit because it's better now. And the base agility from 20 to 26 means a way better base attack time, or way better attack time at level 1, and 6 extra damage. So Juggernaut's a hero that I think will keep getting slight nerfs until people start picking him a lot. Coddle. I think Coddle needed a buff just because he has been picked. Like, I've always suggested picking Coddle when I've played with friends, and been an advocate of the hero. He's my favorite support. I don't think he needed the buff, but I'm glad that he got it. And I don't think the buff's that undeserving, because he hasn't been getting picked that much in the pro scene. And basically, like, the way Coddle worked was they nerfed him by increasing the cost of his Blinding Light. Now they're buffing him by decreasing the cost of Chakra Magic. So, I guess that makes sense, because that way you have to put more... It makes your Chakra Magic more spammable and more important, because... I mean, both changes together. Because with both changes together, like previously, you could mana yourself, and then you could also mana someone else later on, and you would have enough mana to mana yourself, mana someone else, and blast the chakra, or blast your horses. Now it's like you have to pick whether you want to blast the horses, or you want to give mana to someone else, but you can also give mana to yourself later on, too, because the mana cost isn't so high. In general, I like the change a lot. It's cool. Makes him better at supporting. Kunkka changes. This makes it so it's actually kind of a pain in the ass to land Torrent now, I would think. I don't play Kunkka, so I don't know, so I'm not going to pretend to. But I think this actually makes... Because before, at level 2, at all levels, you could cast... If you cast X marks the spot and then immediately cast Torrent, you would always land it. Now it doesn't work like that. So, I think that could be a nerf. Actually, well, it's supposed to be a buff, I think. But to me, it's a slight nerf. Regardless, I think the hero needed a small buff, and I think this works out to a nerf to the way that I play him and the way that I was taught to play him, but overall I think this makes him better. That's cool. This also means you can X mark the spot yourself and TP back to Fountain at any point in time and come back to lane. So if you're mid especially, you can just stay mid. That's cool, actually. I would have liked it if they kept the enemy delay the same, but the allied delay, gave the allied delay the 8. I think that's really cool. I think that would have been the best way to do it, but either way, the ability to... Maybe that was to balance out the fact that he could, if he goes mid, he can just always leave mid. Oh, X marks the spot mana cost reduced from 50 to 0. That's actually broken. Yeah, wow. I didn't read all the way. 19, 16, 13, 10. That means that... Wow. You don't get 1 or 2 points in this anymore. You max it. Wow. That's actually a huge series of buffs to him. Yeah. What they're trying to do with this skill is make it so you have a reason to level it early. I think what you do now is you get the value. You still only get a value point of it, but now you only get the 1 value point to send yourself back, and then you use, and then later on it's even better because you have a bigger cast range and a shorter cooldown. But at least in the early levels, you can really dominate mid with that. You always have a full bottle. Diabolic Edict duration increased from 8 to 10 seconds. Just overall buffs for Leshrac. Again, the support meta. Lich, Chain Frost cooldown from 145. It's all about increasing the viability of supports. I like that. I want to see more Lich ultis. The Lifestealer change is obnoxious. Lifestealer is actually kind of strong now, especially because they reduced the price of Armlet by 100 gold. Just all around like buffs to Lifestealer. It's really cool. I don't know if the hero... I think the hero has always been okay, but this could get him back into pricing. Again, just a chain of buffs to Lina. Again, support meta. Lion, base attack damage increased by 7. Mana drain interval from 0.25 to 0.1. So, kills illusions on the first hit. Yeah, like, it's insane. They're just buffing supports left and right to make them more viable. This Lone Druid buff is stupidly broken, I think. It's really, really cool. The Battle Cry, like, at least, it's not, like, broken, but it's really, really good at level 3 now, because now, like, even though they reduced the duration by 2, Battle Cry is for those of you wondering, Battle Cry is the sub-ability that you get when Lone Druid's in his bear form, and before they doubled the cooldown, and they reduced the duration from 8 to 6 seconds, but now instead of getting 60 damage at level 3, you get 100, and instead of getting 6 armor, you get 15. So that's actually, it's like 6 seconds of just, like, beast mode. It's awesome. Moonglaive level 4 bounces increased from 5 to 6, and the Eclipse Beam. The Scepter buff is actually pretty substantial. You now get 14 beams with a Scepter. So I could honestly see, like, picking Luna and getting her just a solo farm experience to rush a fast level 16 and Aghanim Scepter being viable now, but if the enemy has BKB, it's not. If Eclipse went through BKB, though, she'd be stupidly broken. I don't know, if you're really balling out of control in the early game and the enemy can't get a hold of Aghanim Scepters, then can't get a hold of BKBs, rushing an Aghanim Scepter might be viable. Actually, it'd probably be awesome. This is, like, the Scepter increase, like, getting a Scepter on Luna is one of those things that, like, won't work very often, but when it does work, it will just completely destroy everyone. It will be so good. Meepo, divide away span, respawn time reduction, now 20% instead of 10, 20, 30. I think that's a small buff. Maybe a nerf. Yeah, it's maybe a nerf because Meepo gets level 16 really fast. It's not that big of a change. Slight buff to Morphling. He's been picked a lot, but he's always kind of sucked ass in my opinion. Like, ever since he got nerfed post-TI2. So, that's cool. I don't think he needed a buff. But I'm not opposed to it. It doesn't really bother me. Night Stalker, base attack damage increased. I mean, this is just like the darkness duration. Darkness no longer pauses the day-night timer. Wow. Wow. That's really cool. I really like the fact that Ice Frog focused on Night Stalker's ultimate here and made it unique. See, before what you did with Night Stalker was you used your ultimate as soon as night hit. And what this did was your cooldown for your ultimate, at level 3 at least, would be over before daytime came again. And then when daytime was over, by the time, then you could use it again, and by the time daytime came around, you've had a night that's 3 or 4 times as long as night's supposed to be. And because you let the cooldown tick during nighttime, when daytime does like finally come around, you probably don't have that much of a cooldown left on your ultimate. Now you get you have an 80-second cooldown. Like now you can have permanent darkness essentially, because darkness doesn't pause the day-night timer. It's 50 seconds where you can continually run through the day with darkness on, and the cooldown's only 80 seconds, so you have 30 seconds when your ultimate runs out. It also sets max vision to 675, which is pretty fucking small. You actually destroy everyone's vision there, and I'm assuming this applies to Luna too. So it makes your ultimate night different from normal night, which I think is cool. It's pretty huge buffs, I think, to him. Will it make him popular in the pro meta? I don't know. Make him a pub stomp hero, I think. I think the damage nerf is not that big, but I think the cast range is huge, and I think that's a good nerf. Because the hero was kind of... I hate seeing the hero nerf because he wasn't strong for that long, but he is really strong, and the cast range is probably the big weakness for the hero, and the damage is the strength. So by not messing with the damage too much, and by hurting the cast range, you're essentially hurting him where he already hurts without taking away what makes him cool. And I think it's cool, and he's got lots of armor and hit points, so he actually has the time to waddle up to you and stun you. So, that's a cool change. OG's Astral Imprisonment Steal increase is very slight, and the duration reduce is also kind of slight. It's a rework, nothing really big. Will it get him more playtime? No. OD's a hero that you pick to counter specific heroes and just win mid when you need to. It doesn't change him at all. PA, slight nerfs at all levels except level 16, so she doesn't scale as... Well, she doesn't start out as good. I don't know if she needed. The hero's super strong when she's strong and super weak when she's weak. She's a very extreme hero in that sense. Not much to say. It's very small. Supernova got a buff, which is pretty cool. There's small buffs to Phoenix. I don't think the hero needs buffs. In fact, I think he's one of the strongest heroes in Dota. But it's cool to see him get buffed because he hasn't been around that long. Pudge buffs. I think Pudge needs buffs to bring him into the pro scene. However, I'm also hellishly terrified of Pudge getting buffs because it means we'll see him more in pub games, and there's nothing worse in a pub game than a Pudge. So, that being said, his level 1 hook is now insane. It's insane. His level 1 hook is now good. I hope we'll see Dendi playing Pudge. There, I said it. Pugna... Wow. Oh, Blade Mail no longer reflects Nether Ward damage onto Pugna. Damn it! I loved picking Skywrath and just... Pugna uses Ward, you're Skywrath with Blade Mail, you use Blade Mail and cast your ultimate and it instantly kills Pugna. I thought that was cool. Pretty big buff to him, though. It's cool. I think he kind of needed it. Yeah. Queen of Pain needs buffs. She's kind of sucked ass lately. And she got the buff she needed. 1300 blink range at all levels. Blink cooldown increase, but still, 1300 range is insane. Pure damage and affects spell immune on her ultimate too, which is a buff. Even though it says the damage is reduced, that's just the damage that it would do anyway, based on most people's based magic resistance. So she does an assload of damage now. Well, she just affects magic immune now, and more importantly, you can see these numbers and calculate exactly how much damage how much it will do, and therefore how much hit points you have to get your opponent under before you execute them. So it's pretty cool. Ricky, I think this is a buff. Blink strike bonus damage was reduced, but you have the extra charge, so it's not really that reduced. And at the max level, it's the same, so you get an extra 100 damage plus your auto attack at max level. And they increase the charge restore time. It makes Ricky more of a burst hero. So Ricky, by changing his ultimate and putting his ultimate as a passive, I think you're actually making the hero... It's actually a slight rework to the hero because you're making him more of a burst damage carry than this like invisible guy that just destroys you. I think the hero, he's been really weak in the pro scene and he's always been popular in pubs. I think he needs a buff. He's been shit lately. Rubik gets a buff. Scepter spell speed cooldown from 5 to 2. Fatable mana cost reduction. I don't know if he needed it. He's always been really good, but meh, not upset. Shadow Raise damage increased by 25 at all levels on Shadow Fiend. I think that's good because Shadow Fiend's a hero that requires a lot of skill to land those Shadow Raises, especially against other humans. So I think that's cool. I think that's good. Silencer, I don't think needed any buffs at all. I think the hero is super strong. I like the fact that they made the Scepter Global Silence no longer increase the duration, because they're basically buffing all this it's kind of a weird rework, because they're buffing all the shit about Silencer that nobody really cares about too much, but they're also nerfing the thing that makes him really strong, which is his ultimate, but by cutting down the cooldown on Last Word, it makes his laning stage even better, and laning against Silencer as hell, so you are buffing something he's really good at. Yeah, I think the change is okay. Not that big either way. Skywrath Mage base agility reduced by 5. Not the biggest change in the world. I think he needed some kind of nerf. He's been really strong. Slardar got buffed all around. Amplified damage cooldown being 5 is actually broken. Like, does anyone actually realize like how good amplified damage is? Like, it's one of the best spells in Dota. But I think Slardar is another hero, like kind of like Tiny and CK, except he doesn't scale nearly as well. He does scale somewhat well, though. I think Slardar's a hero that when people figure out like how good he is, you'll see him everywhere. Pounce damage reduced. I don't think Slark deserves a nerf. I don't like this patch. I don't like this nerf at all. I think he was fine the way he was. I don't think he was OP at all. But whatever. It's not that big of a change. Sniper. Shrapnel no longer does damage to buildings. Shrapnel now has 3 charges. Mana cost reduced from 120 to 50. Duration increased from 9 to 10. I think this is really cool. Does it overlap? Okay, the slow and damage does not stack with itself. So basically this makes Sniper like have some kind of teamfight presence, because now you can do your triple shrapnel spam. Like if you have a Tiny do a Ravage or a Tidehunter do a Ravage, you can now triple shrapnel spam, and you're slowing and damaging everyone during the teamfight, which is really cool. I think I really like the old shrapnel because you did damage to buildings, and so he did have some kind of push presence, because otherwise he doesn't really offer you anything in the early game. Except a little bit of lane presence through his passive headshot, because he can shoot uphill. I think the hero needed some kind of change. I don't know if it was this, but the hero needed some kind of change because he was never picked ever for anything ever. So, I'm happy to see him get some buffs. Spirit Breaker Empowering Haste cooldown down from 20 to 16. I think that's fair. Kind of a horrible hero. Storm Spirit turn rate improved. I think that's cool because one of the strengths of Storm Spirit is being able to zip-zap all over the place at any time. So having a super awesome turn rate is really important to his strength. Sven Warcry duration increased by a second, and God Scepter ally bonus increase. I think that's really cool because Sven's a hero that is, like, historically he's been either way too strong or way too weak. He's kind of balanced right now, but I really like the direction Icerock's taking him in as to being a hero that really helps his team out in fights, which is cool. I like it. I like the Sven buffs. Techies in Captain's Mode, which we'll never see ever. Landmines damage increased. That's actually stupidly good now. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that. Got a text on my phone, which will now be on vibrate. Sorry. But yeah, I think now, like, if you stack up a boatload of landmines at the start of the game, you will do just an absurd amount of damage to anyone that trips over it. Like, and also, if you try stacking Ancients and jungling Ancients with Techies now, like, it's harder with the new patch, but if you do it, like, you'll kill them a lot faster. It's pretty cool. I think he needed that. This isn't... The cast point change is huge. It's... Wait a minute. Cast point Dota 2, because I'm pretty sure that's a buff, right? Cast animation. Cast front swing is the delay between when an ability command is issued and it's actually performed. So, Terrorblade actually got buffed. I thought that was a nerf the first time I saw it. And the Sunder minimum HP is cool. Like, it makes his excuse me, makes his Sunder like less OP at later levels, but it makes like a value point good. Thing is, nobody ever gets level 1 Sunder. Everyone gets it at like level 9 or 10, and then gets the second point at 11. So that change is only really a nerf in my eyes because no one uses level 1 Sunder. But the reflection cast point. Oh, I'm sorry. It's reflection, not his ultimate. Okay. Okay. I don't know what I was thinking. But the Reflection cast point, basically Reflection is a spell that you don't pick because Terrorblade's so swishy and his other abilities are so good that you need to get stats and you need all his other abilities. So Reflection is never used for anything. So a slight buff to that ability makes sense. Also, it used to be OP as fuck. It was the most broken ability in the game. 5 seconds slow, level 1, 50 mana cost. Like, easy first blood every game. That hero was really broken. Like, Terrorblade is one of those heroes that, like, I always think he's good, but he was really stupidly broken when he came out, looking back on it. Tidehunter, base move speed reduced by 5, good. Ravage, damage reduced slightly, good. You don't pick it for that, you pick it for the stun. Maybe he won't get picked as much, whatever. Tinker, heat-seeking missile damage increased. I think he needed that because Tinker sucks now. I think he sucks. It's a case that he can't do Ancients. Tiny's toss duration and grow move speed. So as a buff to the move speed, the toss duration means that you now toss and avalanche, and you toss... Basically what happens when you toss is, if you toss, what I've been told at least, is when you toss, if you cast avalanche as soon as he goes in the air, you'll hit him mid-air with avalanche, and then when he lands, he'll take avalanche damage twice. So now it's avalanche toss, rather than being toss, now it's toss, then insta-avalanche, rather than avalanche, wait half a second, toss mid-avalanche. I have no fucking idea what the change is about. But it's still there, you can still do the combo. Trap Protector. Eyes in the Forest Overgrowth damage increased to awesome levels. Eyes in the Forest cooldown reduced from 55 to 25. I think Trap Protector is a good hero. I don't think he deserved this buff. I like the hero, so it's cool to see him getting buffed. But I think the hero's like always been good. Fixed Fervor stack being one... Fervor count being 1 stack too slow. Maybe that'll help Troll Warlord. Troll Lord is also a hero that's always been awesome, but I'd like to see him buffed just because he's not picked. Tusk, Ice Shard's projectile speed increase. I think overall Tusk got a pretty big buff, or like a pretty all-around buff. I don't think it'll bring him into the pricing, but it makes him good or better. Undying got Soul Rip got a nerf at the highest level, but this means that a value point in Soul Rip is way better, which is actually a huge buff. Soul Rip damage heal per unit. Actually, I don't know. I would say at... this is... Let's do... 180 versus... I mean, it's weird. It doesn't change that much when I'm looking at it now. But it does make his level 1 Soul Rip better, which is the important thing, because Soul Rip is honestly, like, in my opinion, a value point ability. So... Vengeful Spirit's Wave of Terror cooldown increased. She needed that. She's been picked a lot lately, and people have really realized like how good her Wave of Terror is, and I needed a nerf. Because the strength of the hero is the swap and the instant stun and the damage. Like there's everything about Vengeful Spirit lately has been really good, and Wave of Terror has historically been her like ass skill. So I think it's good that they nerfed her ass skill, because her ass skill is actually pretty good. Visage got buffs all around. In pub scenes, yeah, definitely needs buffs because it's Visage. In pro scenes, hell no, the hero's awesome. Don't know how I feel about this. I don't know, I think I like it actually because I really like Visage in general, but I don't know if he deserved it. Fatal Bonds buffs to Warlock, that's cool. I think he needs it. The hero kind of sucks. He's basically just a walking ultimate. Wind Ranger power shot increased. Like, Wind Ranger got a pretty solid series of buffs here. I think this could bring her back in the professional scene, because I think she's always been, like, there was definitely a period of time where Windrunner was just, like, ass in the offlane because the Timbersaw was just so good, or now, like, I'm not going to use Brute as an example, but Bristleback or Clockwork, there have been so many really good offlane heroes that Windrunner kind of fell out of it, but now those heroes have been kind of nerfed, metagame's changing. I think Windrunner can go back to the offlane. I think she's a good hero. Animal Courier, 30 gold less to buy. I like that. Anytime things are reduced, anytime prices are reduced, I'm usually happy. Blink Dagger is a buff to Blink Dagger, so it's no longer disabled if you take no damage. For instance, if you're attacked and you're Nyx with Spike Carapace on, you don't take the Spike Carapace damage, the Blink Dagger is no longer disabled. I'm shocked Blink Dagger is getting buffed, because Blink Dagger is one of the most popular, if not the most popular item in Dota right now. It's probably the most popular item within its price range in Dota right now. It's insanely powerful and insanely good, especially in the pro scene. I don't want to see Blink Dagger buffed or nerfed, because I think Blink Dagger makes the game more exciting. I think it's a good item, even though it's annoying to play against, especially as Lycan. But I don't know. I'm just surprised that the change. I like the change. I'm just surprised Ice Rock did it. Bottle. A courier carrying a bottle will always be slowed. So basically, an empty bottle slowed a courier a lot, which I know doesn't make any sense. But basically, an empty bottle slowed couriers so that people. So what mid players would do is that they'd get the bottle, use it twice, and send it back with one charge, so it wouldn't get so the courier wouldn't be slowed down. Now it's always slowed if it's not full, which is a good change, I think. I think it's a good change for pubs. I don't think it's a good game for pros. A good change for pros. In pubs, it was a good change because you had just mids hogging the courier all day again. In pro games, it was a neat exploit that let pro players always bottle crow. I don't know. Bottle crowing is a controversial subject. I don't really have a problem with it personally, but then again, I'm not a mid player. But I think it's probably a good change. Broadsword replaced Talisman of Evasion at the side shop. This is cool. It just kind of sucks because now you can't just finish. Now you have to go to your base to finish a butterfly, which really sucks. Which I think is a bad change because it's kind of a nerf to a lot of agility. It's kind of a nerf to a lot of agility heroes. That being said, the Broadsword is an item that builds into a Battle Fury, which means this is a buff to Battle Fury heroes, and Battle Fury is an item that has been really, really bad lately. So I'm happy to see it. Circlet gold cost reduced. This is actually, I think, a slight buff to Terrorblade and a slight buff to anyone that buys Wraith Bands or Circlets, whatever, because now you can get the Null Talisman. Now you can get the Circlet faster. And it's not a big change, especially for the mid-game and late-game, but for the absolute start of the game, it's a slight buff to Circlet, which I like. Mana Restore on Clarity increase. I like this. I'll probably continue to like it as he increases the Mana Restore. Crimson Guard duration increased by 1. I haven't seen Crimson Guard that much in pro games, and I only saw it maybe twice in the, 8 games I played in this patch. But I don't think the item's OP. I think the item's good. I think it's good that Vanguard builds into something. But yeah, I like this change. Diffusal Blade is no longer a unique attack modifier, and multiple mana break type abilities do not stack. So you can't get Diffusal Blade on Anti-Mage and do double mana burn. Duh, we did that anyway. But no longer a unique attack modifier means that you can now get Lifesteal or Scotty in addition to Diffusal Blade. I think this is a good change because it doesn't really change the stats on the item. It basically gives the item new uses rather than bringing it back for its old uses. I think it's a really good item, and it's one of the most overlooked items in the game, I think. It's one of the most overlooked. Drum of Endurance charges increased from 5 to 6. I like that. Helps the early game and the mid game. It's cool. Yule Scepter increased cost by 150. I really like this. The Yule Scepter is I've seen this item, especially in professional matches. I think I saw one game at the Summit where there were 6 fucking Yule Scepters. I think there was one game I saw at the Summit where everyone on one team had a Yule Scepter. I've just seen everyone gets the item all the time now. It's just no reason not to, especially if you're supporting. Buys you a few extra minutes of life, gives you a bunch of lockdown, and gives you movement speed out the ass. It's great. Needs a nerf. Healing Salve. Cost reduced from 115 to 110. This is a not a big change. It's cool. I like seeing consumables being cheaper. Helm of the Dominator. Dominated unit bonus health now increased from 250 to 500. Helm of the Dominator, I think, has been a relatively weak item lately, and to buff it by increasing the skill cap, because you have to use your Dominated creep to get the effects of this buff, rather than just giving yourself more stats. I like it. It's a cool change. Magic Wand max charges increased from 15 to 17. I like this too a lot, because I think Magic Wand's a good item, and there's a lot of times where you think to yourself, should I sell my wand for this item? Should I sell my wand for that item? Now you hold your wand for a little bit longer. So wand hoarders, rejoice. You get more stuff. Medallion of Courage. I like this a lot because, like, even though I never buy Medallion on Lycan, I do think that Medallion's a very good item. And it's one of those items that you really hate to get rid of for other items as the game progresses and you get good farm. And now you can hold on to it for longer, and it gives you more while you have it, because you get an extra point of armor, and the exchange armor is now a point higher. Valor can now be cast on enemies to give them armor, so you can buff creeps that are tanking damage. Or you can buff your carry as he's tanking the tower. I always refer to things in terms of Rat-Dota. But I like this change a lot. I think Medallion needed a buff because it was just kind of weak before. It's still kind of it's still kind of a very hero-centric item. Like, you'll only see it on, like, Visage and Lycan, but maybe you'll see it on Nature's Prophet now. I don't know. Pipe of Insight, cost reduced. That's good. Duration increased from 10 to 12. I think Pipe is one of those items that's really overpriced for what it gives. I mean, it's a good item, but it's one of those items that you never see people build, especially in pub games. And in pro games, you build it sometimes, but it's like, that's a lot of gold for what it gives. Like, you really have to be against a lot of magic damage to pick up a pipe and justify spending that much money on it. So, I like seeing it. Refresh your orb cooldown increased by 10 seconds. I don't think this change was needed, but I think this change was needed. I don't like this change because the cooldown's already massive. I do like this change because I've seen so many Tidehunters with Refresh Orb lately. So many other heroes, so many 7-slotted carriers with Refresh Orbs on the courier. It's an okay change. I can't complain. Cost reduced from 1600 to 1400. Shadow Amulet. Your movement is now only interrupted when the invisibility starts rather than when you cast it. So this means, like, see my mouse, like, over here? I cast a spell right here. I click here, and as I'm moving over towards here, I use Shadow Amulet. Instead of stopping, and then I have to right-click to keep myself moving farther, and then immediately press S to stop my character from moving when he goes invisible, he'll just automatically stop walking when he goes invisible. Pretty cool buff, and it costs 200 less gold, which reduces the cost of Shadow Blade. I think Shadow Blade's weak right now, too. And Shadow Amulet really has... It's very rare that anyone ever gets a Shadow Amulet for something other than a Shadow Blade. So, it's cool. We're actually getting something now that is unique. Shadow Amulet's becoming its own unique item, and over time it might become something that people think of as something more than just a piece of a Shadow Blade. Gameplay. When spectating, blah 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 blah. You can now alt-click everything. I think that's basically it, guys. Added a sound that plays when Sanjin Yasha's MAME effect procs on attack. That's cool. I haven't experienced that yet because I played like 7 or 8 games and they were all tiny, but I played against a variety of recently buffed heroes, and let me tell you, man, I'm getting really sick and tired of Lifestealer and fucking Bounty Hunter. And Bounty Hunter is probably the biggest... If I could give, like, the biggest winner of this patch, I think it'd be Bounty Hunter, because now Bounty Hunter is... When you're looking at this game and you're wanting to bring your meta more towards the early game and the mid game, you really want to look at someone like Bounty Hunter, because he's like the definition of an early mid game hero, because he can ball out of control if he gets lots of money, but he's never going to be a late game carry, and he helps your allies by giving them lots of money, and he's also a burst damage hero because of his Shuriken, and now his Shuriken, not only does it bounce to track enemies, it's got a 4-second cooldown, so if you have everyone on the enemy team trapped and you spam double Shuriken, you just destroyed everyone on the enemy team. Like, Bounty Hunter's now a really good hero when people figure out how to play him. Again, other patch winners: DK, CK, Gyrocopter. Kunkka is a huge patch winner, especially for laning. Night Stalker is a decent patch winner. Slardar is a big patch winner. Sven. We don't see that many extreme changes anymore because Ice Frog is not trying to have metas where we see the same 15 heroes every game, and Dota's always been a pretty flexible game, but he's trying to make it even more flexible, and that's why you see people get buffed and nerfed at the same time. He wants to change people while buffing them. He wants to buff them while buffing them or nerfing them. He wants to change heroes in one way or another. You can look at it and say, well, this is definitely a buff or this is definitely a nerf, but something about the hero probably got buffed when they got nerfed or nerfed when they got buffed, unless it's just a very, very slight change. So thank you guys for watching. I know it's a little bit late. I'll try to put out more videos soon in the future. But these are my thoughts on the latest patch notes. Again, I haven't been playing as much, but I have been watching a lot of Dota, and I will always love watching Dota. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Please subscribe if you like this video, like it, tell your friends about it, etc. Peace!